Snow fell soft over the little town like it was trying to hush the laughter. Inside the Christmas fair, tables lined the hall, each one dressed in red cloth and shiny trays of treats. Sugar cookies shaped like stars, perfect pies glazed like mirrors, cakes stacked high with ribbons, everything looked polished and practiced. At the far end sat Mara. She was big, her coat stretched tight around her, her cheeks already flushed before anyone even spoke. Mara's table was plain, no ribbons, no sparkling stand, just a chipped blue plate holding a single cookie, thick and uneven, the edges cracked where the dough had spread too far. It smelled warm, though, cinnamon, butter, something deeper that felt old and familiar. She had baked it before dawn in her tiny kitchen, hands aching, heart thudding with a hope she hadn't allowed herself to name. People slowed when they reached her table. Some stared, some whispered. One woman covered her mouth and laughed, not even trying to hide it. "That's it," a boy snorted as his friends leaned closer. "One cookie." Another voice followed, sharper. "Figures." Mara kept her eyes on the plate, fingers twisted together under the table, nails digging into her palms. She had been laughed at before, at school, at work, even at church potlucks where people pretended kindness tasted better than truth. But today hurt more. Today was Christmas. Today was supposed to mean something else. Mara remembered her mother standing at the counter years ago, flour dusting her hair like snow. They never made fancy cookies. They made one big one, thick and soft, meant to be broken and shared. "Food isn't about looking pretty," her mother used to say, pressing Mara's small hands into the dough. "It's about feeling safe when you taste it." That cookie on the plate was the last thing Mara knew how to make that still felt like home. A man with a camera stopped in front of her table, smirked, and snapped a photo. "For the town page," he said, already turning away. Heat burned behind Mara's eyes. She swallowed it down. Crying would only give them something else to point at. Across the hall, applause broke out for another baker. Mara flinched. Her cookie sat untouched, silent, like it was ashamed to be there. She thought about packing it up, slipping out the side door, letting the cold swallow her embarrassment. No one would notice. No one ever did. Her chair scraped softly as she shifted, ready to stand. That was when the door opened. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of snow and leather. Boots hit the floor, slow and heavy. The room didn't quiet right away, but something changed, like a string pulled tight. Mara didn't look up at first. She was too busy reminding herself to breathe. The boots stopped in front of her table. She felt it before she saw him. The pause, the stillness, the absence of laughter. Slowly, Mara lifted her eyes, expecting another grin, another joke. Instead, a tall rancher stood there, hat in his hands, gaze fixed not on her size or her table, but on the cookie. His expression wasn't amused. It was soft, almost careful. He leaned closer, inhaled, and something in his face shifted, like a memory had just opened its door. The rancher didn't speak right away. He just stood there, holding his hat against his chest like he'd wandered into a church instead of a crowded hall. Around them, the fair kept buzzing, but the sound seemed to thin, as if the space between them had grown quiet on purpose. Mara watched him from under her lashes, braced for whatever came next. "You make this?" he asked finally. His voice was low, roughened by wind and long days, but gentle in a way that surprised her. Mara nodded once. Words felt dangerous. If she opened her mouth, everything she'd been holding back might spill out instead. He studied the cookie again, not the way others had. No squinting, no smirk, but like he was reading a letter. "Mind if I try it?" A ripple of murmurs moved through the nearby tables. Someone snorted. Someone else whispered something sharp and amused. Mara's fingers curled tighter. She wanted to warn him. Wanted to say it wasn't fancy, that it didn't look right, that it might not be worth the trouble. But her mother's voice echoed in her head. Let people decide for themselves. She slid the plate toward him. The rancher broke off a piece, slow and deliberate. The cookie gave easily, steam rising faintly from the center. He lifted it, paused, then took a bite. Mara watched his face like her future depended on it. His eyes closed. It wasn't dramatic. No big reaction. Just a breath. Deep. Steady, like someone who'd been holding it for years and finally let go. When he opened his eyes again, they were shining in a way that made her chest ache. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He chewed carefully, nodding to himself. Then he swallowed and looked at her, really looked at her, not past her or around her. "This," he said quietly, "tastes like home." The words landed heavier than laughter ever had. The noise around them softened. A few heads turned. The woman who'd laughed earlier frowned, confused. The boy with the snort went silent. Mara felt something crack inside her. Not pain this time, but relief. Her throat tightened. "It's just one cookie," she managed. He shook his head. "No, ma'am, it's more than that." He broke off another piece, smaller, like he was handling something precious. "My mama used to make one like this. Didn't have much. Said fancy didn't fill your stomach or your heart. This did both." He set his hat on the table and reached into his coat, pulling out his wallet. Mara's eyes widened. "You don't have to. I want to," he said, firm but kind. He laid a folded bill beside the plate. More than the fair price, more than anyone had paid for any cookie that day. Then he did something no one else had done. He smiled at her, not polite, not pitying, real. "Would you mind," he asked, "if I shared this with a few folks who could use remembering what home tastes like?" Mara nodded, tears blurring her vision as he waved over two older men near the door, ranch hands by the look of them. He broke the cookie again, offering pieces like communion. They tasted, their faces changing the same way his had. The laughter didn't come back. It couldn't. Something warmer had taken its place, spreading quietly from one plain table at the end of the hall. Word traveled faster than snow on a hard wind. People drifted toward Mara's table, not all at once, but in careful steps, as if approaching something fragile. The woman who had laughed earlier hovered near the edge, eyes fixed on the chipped blue plate now holding only crumbs. The boy stood behind her, suddenly unsure where to put his hands. The rancher stayed. He didn't rush off after his bite or tip his hat and disappear. He leaned against the table like it belonged to him, like he was standing guard. "She baked it herself," he said when someone asked. Not loudly, just enough. A man with tired eyes stepped forward first. He asked if there was more. Mara swallowed and shook her head. "I only made the one," she said, shame creeping back in. Her kitchen hadn't had enough butter for more. She'd told herself it was practical, but now it felt small again. "That's all right," the rancher replied before anyone else could. "One's enough to remind folks." Someone clapped then. Hesitant, single. Another followed. The sound grew, uneven but sincere, until the hall filled with applause that felt nothing like the earlier cheers. Mara stood, almost without realizing she was doing it. Her knees shook. She pressed her hands into the table to steady herself. "I didn't come to win," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I just didn't want my mama's recipe to disappear." The words surprised her. She hadn't planned them. They'd been waiting. Silence held the room, the good kind. The kind that listens. The rancher tipped his hat to her, eyes warm. "Looks like it won't," he said. By the end of the fair, someone had pinned a small handwritten sign to her table, "Sold out, home-style cookie." Another baker offered her extra dough for next year. The woman who had laughed returned, cheeks red, and murmured an apology that Mara accepted with a nod, not because it fixed everything, but because it loosened the knot in her chest. Outside, dusk settled purple and gold over the town. The rancher walked with her to the door, snow crunching under their boots. "You got a gift," he said. "Don't let folks tell you otherwise." Mara hugged her coat tighter, the cold sharp but welcome. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen without being weighed, noticed without being measured. As he stepped into the snow, he paused and turned back. "Next Christmas," he said, smiling, "I'll be first in line." She laughed then, soft, real, and watched him disappear into the falling white. Behind her, the hall glowed with light and voices, but inside her, something warmer had settled. Home, she realized, wasn't always a place you went back to. Sometimes, it was something you finally let the world taste.